Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Monday, September 9th, 2019. Today, we're going to go over yesterday's NFL games, look ahead to the doubleheader tonight on ESPN. We're going to go over how the U.S. Open played out in both the men's and the women's side, college football results from Friday and Saturday, baseball results from yesterday, look ahead to tonight's games, guess the lines for week 3 of college football, and my best bet of the day. Okay, we're going to start in the NFL. As we go through the results, I'm going to go through some overreaction type of things from each team, and I'm going to say whether I think it's a yes or a no, and I'm going to look back on this after week 9, because that is pretty much the half point of the season, because we've seen teams start like 0-3 before and then win 9 in a row. Or, for instance, the Colts last year started 1-5 and made the playoffs. And the team I referenced, or meet the reference when I said they started 0-3 and won 9 straight, obviously being the Houston Texans. So you never know what could happen. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, the Titans defeat the Browns 43-13. Great start for the Titans this year, 1-0. Cleveland 0-1. Marcus Mariota, 14 of 24, 248 yards and 3 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield, 25 of 38, 285 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks. And Titans pretty much dominated this game from the second quarter on. Derrick Henry was a monster. The Browns really looked flat, in my opinion, and they really, I think, bought into the hype a little bit, and they were very humble after the game, and karma's a bitch sometimes, and they came back to bite them a little bit in this game. Although I'm high on the Browns this season, obviously. I had them going 11-5, but maybe they go, say, 10-6 instead. And we'll talk about the rest of this division and what can transpire. So, in my first set of the overreactions, of course, we're going to start with the winning team because they deserve credit for winning. A lot of people are dismissing the Titans because everyone's going to be focused on the Browns and how overrated they are and yada yada. Odell's a loser. You're going to hear all that talk today. But my Titans overreaction. They will finish with a winning season for the 4th year in a row. To me, that's dumbfounding. They've had some bad coaching staffs. They have a quarterback who's never stayed healthy. They have some talent on the roster on both sides of the ball, but they don't have the most talent in their own division. So, for the 4th straight year, will the Tennessee Titans finish with a winning record? I'm still going to say no, because I think there's 2 better teams in that division. We'll get to one who had the big injury in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to say they still don't finish with a winning record. Maybe they go 7-9 rather than 5-11 like I predicted them to go before the season. The Cleveland Browns will not make the playoffs. I'm going to say false on that statement and say that they will end up still making it, and it was just a slow start and they got caught up in the hype. I mean, week 1 upsets happen every single year. I've seen bad teams upset good teams every year. Like, I remember the 49ers won on Monday Night Football and then ended up losing 8 in a row or something, and they were like 1-8. I think it was Chip Kelly's first game as the Niners head coach, believe it or not. Like, I vaguely remember that. Colin Kaepernick, and they played the Rams, and I'm not sure if Jared Goff was their quarterback or not. I believe that it was the year before they drafted Goff. So, maybe it was the year they drafted Goff. I don't remember. But I remember the Rams looked horrible, and the Niners dominated. And then the Rams ended up being bad that year anyway, but the Niners were also really bad, and obviously that was before the Jimmy Garoppolo trade anyway. So week 1's always wacky. So again, my overreactions, that could be true or false. The Titans will have a winning record, and the Browns miss the playoffs, and I think both of those are false. Next game. Ravens over the Dolphins, 59-10. An impressive win for the Ravens, who are 1-0. The Dolphins lived up to what they were perceived to be before the season, and they start 0-1. Lamar Jackson, 17 of 20, 324 yards, 5 touchdowns. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 14 of 29, 185 yards, a touchdown. and a pick. Very impressive game from Lamar Jackson. He barely ran the ball if he didn't, but I did not certainly see him run. It was all passing, and all the talk about him becoming a better passer really has come into fruition in this game. The rookie receivers, Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin, combined 3 touchdowns, so that was pretty awesome. And RG3 even got some playing time in the fourth quarter, and you saw Josh Rosen in this game as well. Now you wonder if Rosen's going to actually start next week. And by the way, Rosen's numbers, 1 for 3 for 5 yards and an interception. Yikes. And then RG3, 6 for 6, 55 yards and a touchdown. So a bust quarterback from 6 years ago ends up outplaying the second-year quarterback who a lot of people think that should be starting for the Dolphins instead of the veteran Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, Ravens overreaction. Lamar Jackson for MVP? I'm going to say no to that. I still think that this is Mahomes' award to lose. Tom Brady's obviously in the conversation. We'll get to the Patriots' big acquisition once we get to them on this podcast. And you have a lot of other guys. Dak Prescott, somebody I think has to be in the conversation, but we'll get to the Cowboys in a little while. So Lamar Jackson for MVP, I'm going to say no. Dolphins will go 0-16. I'm going to say no. And it's funny because ESPN.com is doing overreactions as well, and one of theirs was, will the Dolphins go 0-16? And some of them said no, an overreaction, which is crazy to me. We haven't seen an 0-16 since the Browns a few years ago. That team was horrific. This team could be Browns bad. I think it is Browns bad. But there's more bad teams now than there were that year. Like, the Giants are bad. The Bucks are bad. The Redskins are bad. The Lions are bad. The 49ers are bad. There's a lot of bad teams in the NFL. The Raiders are obviously bad. The Broncos could be bad. So the Dolphins might not be the only real bad team in the league. Oh, and then the Jets and the Bills certainly did not look all that great in week 1 either. Like I said, it's week 1, so you never know. So I'm going to say no on Lamar Jackson for MVP and no on Miami being 0-16. The Vikings defeat the Falcons 28-12. Good win for the Minnesota Vikings. They're 1-0. Atlanta 0-1. Kirk Cousins didn't do anything in this game. They relied a lot on Dalvin Cook. Cousins 8 for 10, 98 yards and a touchdown. Dalvin Cook 21 carries for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in terms of receiving, 2 receptions for 9 yards for Cook as well. An outstanding comeback game for him after his injury struggles. Matt Ryan, 33 of 46, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He was not very good in this game. It was mostly Vikings in this game. They got off to a fast start and kind of slowed it down a little bit and did a lot of Dalvin Cook run ball control and played defense. And then the Falcons got 2 garbage time touchdowns late to make that score a little bit more respectable than it, quite frankly, should have been. Overreaction Vikings. They will win the NFC North. I'm going to say yes on that one. The Bears looked pitiful on Thursday. Green Bay, I'm not sold on either. The Lions are the Lions, so I'm going to say the Minnesota Vikings should be the favorites to win that division. They looked like the best team in that division this week, and I think that I'm probably going to whiff on that Bears pick to win the NFC North already and go with the Vikings because the Vikings looked a lot better than the Bears, even though the Bears still have a great defense of their own, and the Vikings have a quarterback who's failed in big games in his life. So it might not be the best bet to flip, but it's one that could be worth it at the end because of the talent on the Minnesota Vikings roster. The Atlanta Falcons will finish with a losing record again. This one's tough. I'm going to say no because I expected them to lose this game, and I think that they are a 9-7 type of team, or 8-8. I said a losing record, so I think they do go 8-8 or better. It was just a bad matchup for them. The Vikings defense is outstanding, and I think that couldn't have been a worse matchup for Matt Ryan in Atlanta in Week 1. Bills over the Jets 17-16. Buffalo's 1-0. The Jets are 0-1. Josh Allen, a nice bounce back after what was a terrible first half. 24 of 37, 254 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Sam Darnold, 28 of 41, 175 yards and a touchdown. Le'Veon Bell, 17 carries, 60 yards, and also 6 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown, and caught a 2-point conversion. Disappointing effort from the Jet offense. Only had 1 touchdown. And don't forget the other touchdown came on a pick 6 from C.J. Mosley in the beginning of the game. And then the Bills offense was nowhere to be found until their rally there at the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. So the Jets let them hang around and they took advantage. And good for the Bills. And it could be them instead of the Jets that finished in second place in the AFC East. So the Bills, overreaction. The second half turnaround for Josh Allen will start to be what becomes his breakout. That's tough. I'm going to say no. I still think he's sort of flawed. I still think he's going to be a good quarterback, but I just think he still needs time to develop into a good quarterback per se. And his offensive line is not very good. His team has a good defense, which kept him in that game as well against the Jets. So I'm going to say that it's an overreaction to say that this second half comeback by Josh Allen will lead to a breakout season for him. And for the Jets, an overreaction for them is Sam Darnold. Are we sure he's the breakout quarterback of the year like everyone in the media penciled him in for? I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say he's not. And so this one overreaction is Sam Darnold is not the breakout quarterback of the 2019 season. And I'm going to say true. I don't think he is. I never said he was going to be. Steven Lieberman on my podcast, when I had him on a few weeks ago, said it was going to be Sam Darnold. Derek was on Sam Darnold having a breakout year. I was not, because of his horrible offensive line, and the skill position guys outside of Le'Veon Bell all stink. And the defense isn't very good either, and it showed in that fourth quarter collapse that let the Bills back in and win this game. So no, Sam Darnold will not be your breakout quarterback like everyone in the media thought he was going to be this year. The Eagles defeat the Redskins 32-27. Much more competitive game than I anticipated. Philly 1-0, Washington 0-1. Carson Wentz, 28 of 39, 313 yards and 3 touchdowns. Case Keenum, 30 of 44, 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. Overreaction for the Eagles. Their defense is worse than we thought. They're worse than we think. I'm going to say it is. That was just inexplicable that the Redskins were able to score that many points in a half against them. 20 points they scored in the half. And they had a lead. Their fans were rightfully booing this team. They were a 10-point favorite. Well, they didn't even cover in this game. They could have if it weren't for a garbage touchdown late by Trey Quinn. So, Philly, I think their defense is a lot worse than we think. So, I'm going to say that that's not an overreaction. Washington's overreaction. Case Keenum is going to repeat his 2017 season with Minnesota. No way. Like I said, this was about the Eagles' defense really sleepwalking and underestimating the Redskins. And I'm going to give the Cowboys some credit later on in this podcast for not overlooking an inferior team in your division. So I gave the Eagles credit for bouncing back, but to me, Case Keenum's success in the first half was predicated on Philadelphia not trying, more so than the Redskins really making people believe that they're a competitive football team. Or I should say a competent offensive team. Not really. Oh, I give them credit for competing, but I just think that they're terrible offensively and they're just a bad football team, period. Rams over the Panthers 30-27. This game was not as close as the final score indicated. Rams 1-0, Panthers 0-1. Jared Goff, 23 of 39, 186 yards, a touchdown, the pick. Cam Newton, 25 of 38, 239 yards and a pick. Overreaction for the Rams. Todd Gurley, is he back? Is he back to the guy that is elite and is great? And more importantly, is he healthy? Yes, he is. He looked fantastic in this game. And he pulled off a good 25-yard run in this game. And I really think that the Rams should really be careful with Gurley and their usage of him this year. So he looked very good. So I'm going to say that Todd Gurley is back. Carolina. Is Cam Newton healthy? I'm going to say he's not. So, really, the overreaction is, are we sure Cam Newton's healthy? Meanwhile, is Cam Newton not healthy? So, I'm going to say Cam Newton is not healthy. He did not look good at all in that game. He threw an interception, and he's somebody that really has been injury-prone over the last few years of his career. Chiefs over the Jaguars 40-26. KC 1-0. Jacksonville 0-1. Patrick Mahomes 25 of 33, 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. There's one play where he missed because he was limping around and Matt Moore attempted one pass, but Mahomes came back in and did the job, and he's fine. Meanwhile, Nick Foles, before his unfortunate shoulder injury, 5 for 8, 75 yards and a touchdown. So he looked okay before he got hurt. And then Minshew came in, 22 of 25, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He wasn't bad at all, I thought. And the offense was scoring with Minshew, and I got to give the Jags offense some credit here for that. So KC's overreaction for them. Is their defense improved or not? I'm going to say it's not, because they let a backup quarterback score 26 on him. Or on them. So I'm going to say that their defense isn't improved like we think it is. But we'll come back in week 9 after to see where teams are. And we'll see if this is just an overreaction or not. Jacksonville. I said that Minshew and how good he looked. So I'm going to say, for my overreaction for the Jacksonville Jaguars, is Gardner Minshew good? I'm going to say, I don't know if he's good per se, but he could be like a Jacoby Brissett type where he just has good talent around him and he's taking full advantage of it, meaning like the defense and Leonard Fournette. But I don't like those skill guys on Jacksonville at all. And I think ultimately that will hurt him. So I'm going to say that it's an overreaction to say that Gardner Minshew is actually a good quarterback. 4 o'clock games. Chargers over the Colts 30-24 in overtime. This was one of the best games of the day. Chargers want to know, Colts 0-1. Give the Colts some credit. They came from behind to force overtime. But hey, if Vinatieri didn't miss that field goal, they win this game in regulation. Let's be honest there. So Vinatieri is somebody we'll get to in a minute. But he pretty much single-handedly cost them this game with the missed field goal there. The Chargers obviously want to know, and the Colts 0-1. Phillip Rivers, 25 of 34, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Jacoby Brissett, 21 of 27, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So the overreaction for the Chargers. Melvin Gordon is not needed. And I'm going to say that it's not an overreaction. I'm going to say that's true. Because Austin Eckler really did the job with 12 carries and 58 yards. And let's see if he had any receiving. Yeah, 6 receptions for 96 yards too. So he's a multi-purpose back. He could be just as good as Gordon was. Gordon was kind of like that too. But I didn't think Gordon was on the level of Elliott and Barkley and Kamara and McCaffrey and Gurley when Gurley's right. So Austin Eckler did the job, and he deserves a lot of credit. So I'm going to say that the LA Chargers do not need Melvin Gordon. Meanwhile, for Indy, true or false, it is time to finally move on from Adam Vinatieri. I'm going to say true. That guy has been around for a long time. I know he's old. He's somebody that was really good even as he aged, but he missed a field goal that pretty much cost him the game. He's missed a couple extra points throughout the last few years. I know he missed a couple big ones last year. So I'm going to say that the Indianapolis Colts need to move on from Adam Vinatieri at some point. Next up, the Seahawks beat the Bengals 21-20. This game was a lot closer than I anticipated. Seattle 1-0, Cincinnati 0-1. Andy Dalton, 35-51, 418 yards and 2 touchdowns. Russell Wilson, 14-20, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yes, Seattle won the game, but my overreaction for them is, are they really not even a good football team? Like, good football teams should beat teams like the Cincinnati Bengals at home, like by double digits. And I'm going to say that's true. I had the Seahawks at 8-8 before the season. That's probably where they're going. And they looked a lot worse than I thought they would look in this week. And on the flip side for Cincinnati, Andy Dalton. Is this guy actually still not a bad quarterback? This is a tough one for me because Dalton has gotten off to good starts before and has faltered, and he's had some interesting games in terms of good numbers against teams that are supposedly good at home like the Seahawks are. So, are we sure Andy Dalton is not that bad? I'm going to say, as the overreaction for the Bengals being Andy Dalton is not a bad quarterback, I'm going to say it's an overreaction. I still think this guy is mediocre at best, and he wasn't mediocre. He was actually solid in this game, put up a lot of passing yards, even without A.J. Green, and the Bengals and Zach Taylor deserve a lot of credit for hanging around this game. Maybe Zach Taylor is this quarterback whisper coach, so that could be it for the Bengals in terms of another overreaction, but mine is about Dalton, and I'm going to say that he's a good quarterback is false. I'm going to say he's still mediocre. The Cardinals and the Lions ended up in a 27-27 tie. The NFL needs to get rid of ties, ASAP. I think they're terrible for the league. Matt Stafford, 27-45, 385 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kyler Murray, 29-54, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. I'm going to go with the Cardinals first because I think they were the team that should have won this football game. So, for them, is Kyler Murray the guy we saw in the first 3 quarters or the guy we saw in the 4th quarter for them? And I'm going to say that the real Kyler Murray, quote-unquote, was the guy we saw in the 4th quarter. That looks like a guy that should have been picked first overall. That's somebody that Arizona saw in him and said, hey, he's our guy. And they should really be impressed and proud of how he brought that team back. And the Cardinals are going to have moments like this throughout the year where they're going to surprise people. They should have won this game. And the NFL needs to get rid of ties. That's another problem for another day. So, my overreaction for the Arizona Cardinals is Kyler Murray is the guy we saw in the 4th quarter comeback rather than the guy we saw in the first 3 quarters. Meanwhile, for the Lions, my overreaction is TJ Hawkinson will win the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. I'm going to say false. There's a lot of other good candidates. Marquise Brown of the Ravens really showed that he could be a candidate for that award with his fine performance. You obviously have Murray for the Cardinals, who is off to a good start in his case. Miles Sanders and David Montgomery are 2 running backs who really didn't have impacts on their games, respectively, in Week 1. Devin Singletary showed some flashes in the Jets game, but he really wasn't all that special. So, hey, this could end up going to Hawkinson. But Hawkinson should be in the conversation for now. The Week 1, quote-unquote, conversation, the best rookies of Week 1 in terms of offensive rookies, definitely Hawkinson, Brown, and Murray. And if I think of anybody else, the receiver from the Patriots that was the undrafted guy that made their team. I'm trying to think of his name. He caught a touchdown pass from Brady. But I'll think of his name once we get to the Pats. 49ers over the Buccaneers, 31-17. The 49ers are 1-0. Tampa's 0-1. Jimmy Garoppolo, 18 of 26, 166 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Jameis Winston, 20 of 36, 194 yards, a touchdown, 3 picks. This was a horrible game. Not 1, not 2, but 3 pick sixes in this game. 3 pick sixes. Yikes. And the 49ers only had 1 offensive touchdown in this game. So, overreaction time. San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo's bad preseason was actually a sign of things to come. I'm going to say false with a bit of an asterisk. I said on the podcast that ACLs take 2 years to recover from. And you're starting to see that Carson Wentz looks healthy. Yeah, you know why he's starting to look healthy? Because ACL injuries take 2 years to recover. I've been saying this for a while. So that's why I'm saying false with an asterisk. I think Garoppolo will get better, but he won't be what you all want him to be for another year because ACLs take 2 years to recover from. And meanwhile, Jameis Winston, overreaction time for the Bucs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be drafting a quarterback in the first round in the 2020 draft, and I'm going to say that's a fact. So I'm going to go true there. I think they're tired of Winston, and he was horrible in this game. And I think Arians wants someone young to build around. Maybe they start tanking for Tua or whomever from. And then there's obviously Justin Herbert from Oregon as well. So there's a lot of guys to tank for, and I won't be surprised if the Bucs start doing that because they were awful in this game. And by the way, their offense only put up 10 points as well because don't forget that Jimmy Garoppolo also threw a pick 6. Cowboys over the Giants, 35-17. The Cowboys are 1-0. The Giants are 0-1. Dak Prescott, 25 of 32, 405 yards and 4 touchdowns. Eli Manning, 3 of 44, 306 yards and a touchdown. Daniel Jones came in at the end, 3 for 4, 17 yards and a fumble at the end there. So that was really not pretty at the end there for Jones. They just threw him in that situation there at the end for him to get some reps when the game was out of hand. But we'll save Daniel Jones. So, Dallas Cowboys. My overreaction for them. Are they the team to beat in the NFC? I'm going to say yes, and that might change tonight if the Saints kick ass against the Texans. Dallas kicked ass against the Giants. Kicked ass. Dak was fantastic. Zeke was fantastic. He looked like he never missed a beat. Amari Cooper's having a breakout year like the Raiders wanted from him these last couple years. So this Cowboys thing really could be something special at the end of the season. Jason Witten's back out of retirement. He had a touchdown catch in this game. And the offensive line's the best in the league. Their defense is so good. Colin Cowherd said on his show today that the Cowboys have 10 or 11 A or A-plus type of players. And that's true. They have so much talent. It's not just about Dak and Zeke and Cooper. You have, on the O-line, Zach Martin, who had 2 penalties. Travis Frederick, who's back from an injury. You have Tyron Smith, who did not have a good year last year, but he's still one of the best left tackles in the league. La'el Collins just got paid. On defense, you have Leighton Vander Esch, who was a candidate for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. You have Jalen Smith, who just got paid. You have Byron Jones at corner. So that's 10 A-list players right there on the Dallas Cowboys roster. And they're a team that I think has a good chance to go to the Super Bowl. Maybe a better chance than I thought before the season. And yeah, I could look back in 8 weeks from now and say, oh, that maybe that's because the Giants are so bad and their defense sucks and Eli Manning's washed and yada yada. But my biggest overreaction takeaway of week 1 that I'm holding my own, the Dallas Cowboys are the team to beat in the NFC right now. And on the flip side, the New York Giants, should they go to Daniel Jones sooner rather than later? Yes, they should, and I think they will. I think there's a chance that they could see him potentially next Sunday against the Bills. Like, there's going to be all the talk this week within the New York media that Daniel Jones should start against the Bills. Eli sucked. I don't care what his stats said. He sucked. And there was a bad call, the intentional grounding they called on Manning. That pretty much screwed up the Giants in that game, and Eli and the team really just gave up after, and the Cowboys just gained all the momentum after that, because that led to a punt, because don't forget, the Giants were in Cowboys territory, then they called that penalty, and that pretty much screwed it up, and the Cowboys got the momentum. But I just think the Giants are a bad football team. Their defense is among the worst in the league. Their head coach is somebody I forgot to put in coaches on the hot seat. I know Stephen Lieberman said it when I had him on, but I should have picked him to be fired. Although I don't know if the Giants would do that because they're a rebuilding team. They're not a win-now team. And you could say the same thing about the Redskins, but the Redskins are probably a lock to fire Jay Gruden. And the Redskins, we'll get to them, or we got to them already, and I said that their success in the first half was because the Eagles sleepwalked. And I could prove to be right about the Redskins too, but both the Giants and the Redskins are pitiful, and both of them might have new head coaches come 2020. And hopefully their young quarterbacks will be pretty good and will lead them the way in their rebuilds. So, true or false in terms of you'll see Daniel Jones before the Giants bye week? I'm going to say true. All right. The Sunday night game. The Patriots absolutely destroy the Steelers 33-3. That was a fantastic performance by the Patriots. They're 1-0. Pittsburgh's 0-1. Tom Brady, 24 of 36, 341 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ben Roethlisberger, 27 of 47, 276 yards and an interception. Big Ben looked washed up, and Tom Brady looked like Tom Brady. So, New England. Are they a lock to repeat as Super Bowl champions? I'm going to say no. Yes, they signed Antonio Brown after Brown was cut from the Raiders. So, they have Brown now in their offense along with Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, Philip Dorsett, and then N'Keal Harry once he comes back. And then you also have that young receiver, Jacoby Myers. He had the one reception for 22 yards in this game, by the way. So that's somebody else that the Patriots like. And don't forget, Julian Edelman in this game actually threw a pass for 32 yards in this game. So don't discount that, and don't discount the Patriots with their tricks. But there's still no lock to win the Super Bowl, even though they just went out and made their team even better with the signing of Antonio Brown for 1 year, $15 million. Pittsburgh. Overreaction for them. They will miss the postseason and go under 500 and fire Mike Tomlin. So that's pretty much 3 things that the overreaction is banking on here. I'm going to say false. I think the Steelers are in a bad spot. The Patriots always dominate them. And it's week 1, and that's a team I still trust to turn it around. Yes, there are bad football teams like the Giants who actually looked somewhat better than the Steelers in week 1. And I think the Giants are going to suck, and I think the Steelers will actually turn it around a little bit here. And maybe they'll go 9-7 or 10-6. But this was just a bad performance in week 1. I think they'll eventually turn it on. And Ben Roethlisberger will be better. I expect Juju Smith-Schuster to play better. James Washington, James Conner, the O-line, I expect it all to be better. I just think they were in a very bad spot in week 1, and I expect them to still be a good team. So the overreaction of the Steelers' demise, I'm going to say, is false. 2 games tonight. You have the Texans at the Saints at 7:10 and the Broncos at the Raiders at 10:20. I am standing by my picks of the Saints and the Broncos, and I think that the Texans will cover, and I think that the Broncos will cover. So that's that for tonight. And I gave you my actual breakdowns of these games on the podcast the other day. So that's really it for week 1. Now we'll move on to the U.S. Open. We'll start in the men's side. Friday night, Daniil Medvedev over Grigor Dimitrov in 3 sets, and then Rafael Nadal over Matteo Berrettini in 3 sets. Then on Sunday was the final. It went very late. It was very competitive. It actually made Yankees-Red Sox start on ESPN2. Rafael Nadal over Daniil Medvedev in 5 sets. This was a fantastic finish to what was a very fun men's side of the U.S. Open. And congratulations to Rafael Nadal. And very good job by Daniil Medvedev for giving Nadal a fight here and giving himself a real chance to win. Or else Derek would have been right. Derek was almost right, so I got to give him credit for at least saying that Medvedev would show up. I thought Medvedev would show up too, actually. Women's side, Saturday, Bianca Andreescu over Serena Williams in 2 sets in the women's final. Congratulations to Bianca Andreescu. That was an impressive performance over Serena. Everyone and their brother pretty much had Serena here, and she did not do the job. And I think Serena is going to come back to the next tournament motivated as ever to really step up her game and try to regain her status as the number 1 women's tennis player again. So, congratulations to Bianca Andreescu for a fantastic run in the women's side of the U.S. Open. She really has broken out into one of the best tennis players in the world on the women's side as well. So you got to give Andreescu her due. We're going to talk about baseball next. We're going to go over the scores from yesterday's games and look ahead to tonight's small slate. Rangers over the Orioles 10-4. Texas is 72-73. Baltimore 46-97. Mike Minor to win. Asher Wojciechowski the loss. Minor 8 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 3 strikeouts, ERA 3.08. Wojciechowski 2 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, a walk, 2 strikeouts, ERA 5.51. Phillies over the Mets 10-7. The Phillies are 74-68. The Mets are 74-70. Ranger Suarez the win. Paul Sewell the loss. Hector Neris the save. Vince Velasquez started 4 in the 3rd inning, 6 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, ERA 4.95. Noah Syndergaard 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, a walk, 5 strikeouts, ERA 4.06. Rays over the Blue Jays 8-3. Tampa Bay is 86-59. Toronto 55-89. Getting the win for Tampa is Trevor Richards, and the loss for Toronto, Jacob Watzapek. Tyler Glass now actually started the game for the Rays. It was his first game back from injury. 2 innings, a hit, 2 runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, ERA 2.15. Watzapek 4 in the 3rd inning, 7 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts, ERA 4.55. Reds over the Diamondbacks 4-3. The Reds are 67-77. The Diamondbacks 75-68. Raciel Iglesias to win. Yoan Lopez the loss. Anthony DeSclafani 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, ERA 4.06. Mike Leake 6 in the 3rd innings, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, and 3 strikeouts. ERA 5.38. Marlins over the Royals 9-0. The Marlins are 51-91. The Royals are 53-91. Sandy Alcantara the win. Mike Montgomery the loss. Alcantara the complete game. Shutout. 2 walks, 4 hits, 8 strikeouts. ERA 4.04. Mike Montgomery 4 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. ERA 4.29. Nationals over the Braves 9-4. The Nats are 79-63. Atlanta 89-55. Max Scherzer to win. Mike Soroka the loss. Scherzer 6 innings, 2 hits and a run, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. ERA 2.56. Braves Soroka 6 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, a walk, 7 strikeouts. ERA 2.67. Cardinals over the Pirates 2-0. The Cardinals are 81-62. Pittsburgh 62-81. Jack Flaherty to win. And getting charged with the loss, James Marvell and Carlos Martinez the save. Jack Flaherty was sensational. 8 innings, 5 hits, no runs, a walk, 10 strikeouts, ERA 2.99. That guy has entered himself into the NL Cy Young conversation. And for Pittsburgh, Marvell, 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, ERA 3.6. White Sox over the Angels 5-1. White Sox 63 and 80, Angels 67 and 77. Getting the win for Chicago was Josh Osich and Jaime Barria with the loss. Dylan Cease 3 in the third innings, 4 hits and a run, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts, ERA 6.53. Noe Ramirez, the opener, 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits and a run, a walk, and no strikeouts, ERA 4.3. Jamie Barria, 4 in the third innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 2 strikeouts, ERA 6.14. Brewers over the Cubs, 8-5. The Brewers get within 2 games in the loss column of the Cubs, 74 and 68. Chicago 76 and 66. Getting the win for Milwaukee was Brent Sutter. John Lester the loss, Josh Hader the save. Starting in this game was Adrian House, 4 innings, 4 3 runs, a walk, 6 strikeouts, ERA 3.55 or 3.9 or 5.9, blah. John Lester, 5 in the third inning, 7 hits, 8 runs, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts, ERA 4.51. Astros over the Mariners, 21-1. They outscored a couple football teams. 94 and 50 on the year of the Astros. Seattle 58 and 86. Garrett Cole the win. Felix Hernandez the loss. Garrett Cole 8 innings, a hit and a run, no walks, 15 strikeouts, ERA 2.73. Starting in this game for Seattle was Felix Hernandez. 2 innings, 7 hits, 7 runs, 2 walks, and a strikeout, ERA 6.96. Indians over the Twins 5-2. Cleveland 83 and 61. Minnesota 88 and 55. So they're within 5.5 of the Twins for the division, but they're not going to catch them, I don't think. Mike Clevenger to win. The loss for Minnesota, Randy Dobnak, and getting the save was Brad Hand. Clevenger 6 in the third innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, ERA 2.72. Dobnak 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, a walk, and the strikeout, ERA 1.64. So he's pretty much an opener for them. Athletics over the Tigers 3-1. The A's are 84 and 59. Detroit 42 and 100. Sean Manaea the win. Getting the loss was Daniel Norris, and Liam Hendricks gets the save. Sean Manaea 7 innings, 2 hits and a run, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts, ERA 0.75. He looks fantastic. Daniel Norris 3 innings, a hit and a run, no walks, 2 strikeouts, ERA 4.72. Padres over the Rockies 2-1 in 10 innings on a walk-off single by Will Myers. San Diego 66 and 76, Colorado 60 and 84. Craig Stammen the win, and getting the loss was Jesus Tinoco. Eric Lauer 6 innings, 4 hits and a run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, ERA 4.41. Pete Lambert 5 innings, 5 hits and a run, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, ERA 6.86. Dodgers over the Giants 5-0. The Dodgers are 93 and 52. San Francisco 69 and 74. Kenta Maeda to win. Derek Rodriguez the loss. Julio Urias actually started 2 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts, ERA 2.48. I wonder if he was pulled from the game or he was just an opener in this game. Who knows? Derek Rodriguez 4 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, ERA 5.09. Yankees over the Red Sox 10-5 on Sunday Night Baseball. The Yankees 94 and 50, so they're tied with the Astros for best record in the AL. Astros have it via the tiebreaker right now, actually. Boston 76 and 67. Chad Green the win. Rick Porcello the loss. Masahiro Tanaka started for the Yankees. He wasn't very good in this game. 4 innings, 8 hits, 4 runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts, ERA 4.53. Rick Porcello 4 innings, 7 hits, 6 runs, no walks, and a strikeout, ERA 5.83. He's been dreadful this year. And tonight's games, the finale of Yankees-Red Sox at 7 o'clock. James Paxton and Eduardo Rodriguez. The Yankees will probably end up taking the game in the series. James Paxton's been improved lately, but he was dreadful in his lone start at Fenway Park this season. But his 2 starts against the Sox at the stadium have both been very good. Braves-Phillies. Mike Feltonevich and Aaron Nola. Diamondbacks-Mets. Merrill Kelly and Jacob deGrom. Brewers-Marlins. Jordan Lyles and Robert Duggar. 8 o'clock, Athletics-Astros. That's a big series in Houston. Mike Fiers and Zach Greinke. 9:45, Pirates-Giants. Trevor Williams and Madison Bumgarner. and 10 o'clock Indians Angels. Shane Bieber and Patrick Sandoval, and 10 o'clock Cubs Padres. Kyle Hendricks and Cal Quantrill. Alrighty. Baseball news that broke last night after the Red Sox defeat to the Yankees. Dave Dombrowski has been relieved of his duties as Red Sox general manager. This is something that me and Terry Cushman talked about on the podcast when I had him on a few weeks ago. He said that he thought that Dombrowski was going to be out, and he was right. And he really convinced me on that one, as well as other media friends that I have. So the Red Sox will move on from Dombrowski, and it looks like that they might be headed for kind of a mini rebuild a la Yankees from a few years ago. Because now there's talks that they're going to trade Mookie Betts and let JD Martinez go as a free agent, or if he opts in, that they might trade him. They want to clear their luxury tax problems. I know they tried to do that last offseason, even though they won the World Series last year. They tried to trade Rick Porcello last year, but they failed because everybody knows he sucks. So, you know you're not trading Rick Porcello, but he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year anyway. He's probably going to get a one-year deal on a bad team like the Tigers or something, the Orioles. One of those bad teams are going to test him out as like a bounce-back candidate with them. So that wouldn't surprise me. Or that's going to be like an Oakland Athletics one-year deal, two-year deal type of pitcher who turns it around, per se. But you never know with the Sox. I think that's a team that really is going to take a step back next year, potentially, if they get rid of Betts and Martinez. But it depends on what else they do. Do they just go in a rebuild direction and not really try to improve their team on the field for next year? But if they do decide to improve their team for next year, just keep Betts and Martinez. And if you're bad at the deadline, then trade Betts. And if you're good at the deadline, keep Betts and try to convince him to stay. It's not that big of a deal. But I'm saying this about Mookie Betts because Mookie Betts is one of the best players in the game, arguably a top 10 player in the game, maybe even a top 5 player in the game when he's right. And he is somebody that is the face of the Red Sox franchise, and I think it'd be a disappointment from their fan base if they were to trade him. And it's really going to cause a lot of controversy down there in Boston. So Red Sox future a little cloudy right now, and they have a lot of work to do in the offseason. But if they trade Betts and get some very good prospects back in return, depends on who the prospects are, but you never know how those can work out. It worked out with the Yankees with Aroldis Chapman. They ended up getting Gleyber Torres. With Andrew Miller, I think it's a wait and see because we'll see how James Paxton performs in October because that's who they traded their pitcher they got in that deal. What's his name? Justice Sheffield for. And then, obviously, Clint Frazier's not really seeing playing time for the Yankees as he's really been just sitting there on the bench. And he's someone that really is a below-average defensive player and just erratic offensively. He's not, in my opinion, what the Yankees thought. And I think that there were better prospects potentially on the table. But Clint was a better prospect at that time, obviously, from a Yankees perspective. But now looking back, he really didn't pan out like the other ones have. So that deal for Andrew Miller that Cashman got back in return may not look as strong as it did once he made that deal. But who knows, maybe James Paxton turns it around in October, regardless of the Clint Frazier thing. So, maybe. We'll see. But Dave Dombrowski is out of a job. Do I think he'll get another job? Who knows? I think maybe the league has passed him by a little bit, maybe. But maybe a team that's desperate might try to hire him. Maybe if the Mets were really just more patient, maybe they would have not hired Brodie Van Wagenen and kept Sandy Alderson around for one more year. And maybe that crazy Cano trade doesn't happen. And maybe Dave Dombrowski would have went to the Mets. But then again, Dave Dombrowski would have did to the Mets what he did to the Red Sox, dismantle their farm system, and what he did with the Tigers that ultimately got him fired there. Although neither of those deals really have panned out for Detroit, really, with David Price and for Cespedes. Because who in those deals really have panned out? Nobody. So he really put Detroit in a bad place too. So maybe the league has passed Dave Dombrowski by a little bit. So I don't know if we'll see him ever in a job again. And then obviously the Red Sox hired people from within to replace him, and it's like a group general manager now. So we'll see what happens here in the offseason with the Boston Red Sox. And a team that's probably doing fist pumps over this news of Dave Dombrowski is the New York Yankees, who probably will be the favorites in the AL East going forward the next few years, as long as Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, and Luis Severino are all healthy and performing. So that's a team that's doing fist pumps over this, and obviously the Tampa Bay Rays a little bit, because they've been trying so hard to make the playoffs over the past few years, and they'll finally potentially get there this year, but maybe this opens a door up for them a little bit as well. But the big winner in the Dombrowski firing, obviously, in my opinion, is the New York Yankees, and the Astros to some extent too, because that's one less team to worry about in terms of big spending, because it looks like the Red Sox are going in a little bit of a transition phase here in their organization. Another resigning that just happened was the athletic director of USC, which is pretty shocking here. Lynn Swann, news just broke. Lynn Swann has resigned as USC athletic director effective immediately, the school announced today. So that's big news out of college football right there before we get to guess the lines and obviously the results from last weekend. But that's big news, and this obviously really is going to shout some wonders for Clay Helton's future, because the new athletic director is going to come in and pick his own guy. So this puts Clay Helton in even more of a hot seat. So Lynn Swann's out, despite them being 2-0. We'll get to USC in a little bit. Despite them being 2-0, Clay Helton's seat gets hotter after the resigning of Lynn Swann, because Swann decided to keep Clay Helton after a disastrous 5-7 season a year ago. But USC is a school that really is a marquee school that always wants to be good and always wants to be relevant. And part of sort of the problem is gone. But a new athletic director is going to come in and get rid of Clay Helton. That's what's just going to happen. It might not happen immediately. Maybe they'll test out how he does for the rest of the season, and maybe they'll fire him after the season if they go like 7-5, like I initially thought they would. But you never know. Maybe they'll impress him. But we'll see. But I think this warms Clay Helton's seat a lot more, despite them being 2-0. And Swann was the one that really decided to keep Clay Helton for a couple more years, in which they probably should have fired him last year or even the year before. Although the year before they were actually solid. But it's USC, and there's always pressure to win there. And obviously, Lynn Swann's out of a job, and now this puts more pressure on him, and it puts more pressure even on the college basketball coach too. I forget his name, Andy Enfield, the guy that came over from Gulf Coast. He's still around as their basketball coach, so that puts the basketball coach under some pressure as well. But to me, there's more pressure on Clay Helton right now to really perform, or have his team perform up to USC standards. So that's what the Lynn Swann news tells me. Now we're going to talk about the results from the weekend in college football. We're not going to do the overreactions game here for college football. Maybe we'll do that on tomorrow's podcast, as well as the overreactions from the 2 Monday night games. So without further ado, here we go. Virginia over William & Mary, 52-17. Virginia is 2-0. William & Mary 1-1. Bryce Perkins, 16 of 26, 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. The quarterback of William & Mary, Kilton Anderson, went 4 for 8 for 103 yards. Yikes. Maybe a couple big throws here and there. Wake Forest over Rice, 41-21. Wake 2-0. Rice 0-2. I'm not going to go through the stats for the rest of these because we're slow on time. Number 24, Boise State over Marshall 14-7. Boise 2-0, Marshall 1-1. Arizona State over Sacramento State 19-7. Arizona State 2-0, Sacramento State 1-1. Saturday, Pitt over Ohio 20-10. I thought Pitt was on upset alert. They survived. They're 1-1. Ohio's 1-1. Number 5, Ohio State over Cincinnati 42-0. Cincinnati 2-0. Cincinnati 1-1. Number 7, Michigan over Army 24-21 in double overtime. Michigan 2-0. Army 1-1. Number 20, Iowa over Rutgers 30-0. Iowa 2-0. Rutgers 1-1. Maryland over number 21, Syracuse 63-20. This was an impressive ass kicking by Maryland. They are 2-0. Syracuse is 1-1. Virginia Tech over Old Dominion 31-17. Virginia Tech 1-1. Old Dominion 1-1. UAB over Akron 31-20. UAB 2-0. Akron 0-2. Kent State over Kennesaw State 26-23 in overtime. Kent 1-1. Kennesaw 1-1. Memphis over Southern 55-24. Memphis' offense bounces back. They're 2-0. Southern 0-2. Missouri over West Virginia 38-7. Mizzou 1-1. West Virginia 1-1. South Carolina over Charleston Southern 72-10. South Carolina 1-1. Charleston Southern 0-2. Purdue over Vanderbilt 42-24. Purdue 1-1. Vanderbilt 0-2. Kansas State over Bowling Green 52-0. Kansas State 2-0. Bowling Green 1-1. NC State over Western Carolina 41-0. NC State 2-0. Western Carolina 0-2. Number 13, Utah over Northern Illinois 35-17. Northern Illinois 1-1. Utah 2-0. Ball State over Fordham 57-29. Ball State 1-1. Fordham 0-2. Georgia Tech over South Florida 14-10. Georgia Tech 1-1. South Florida 0-2. Miami of Ohio over Tennessee Tech 48-17. Miami of Ohio 1-1. Tennessee Tech 1-1. Number 1, Clemson over number 12, Texas A&M 24-10. Clemson 2-0. A&M 1-1. Number 17, Wisconsin over Central Michigan 61-0. Wisconsin 2-0. Central Michigan 1-1. Colorado for number 25, Nebraska 34-31 in overtime. Colorado 2-0. Nebraska 1-1. Southern Illinois upsets UMass 45-20. Yikes. Southern Illinois 1-1. UMass 0-2. Appalachian State over Charlotte 56-41. App State 2-0. Charlotte 1-1. Louisiana Tech over Grambling 20-14. Tech 1-1. Grambling 0-2. Boston College over Richmond 43-13. BC 2-0. Richmond 1-1. Illinois over UConn 31-23. Illinois 2-0. UConn 1-1. Indiana over Eastern Illinois 52-0. Indiana 2-0. Eastern Illinois 0-2. Mississippi State over Southern Miss 38-15. Mississippi State 2-0. Southern Miss 1-1. Number 2, Alabama over New Mexico State 62-10. Bama 2-0. New Mexico State 0-2. Number 3, Georgia over Murray State 63-17. Georgia 2-0. Murray State 1-1. Baylor over UTSA 63-14. Baylor 2-0. UTSA 1-1. Colorado State over Western Illinois 38-13. Colorado State 1-1. Western Illinois 0-2. San Diego State over UCLA 23-14. I called this upset. San Diego State 2-0. UCLA 0-2. Number 22, Washington State over Northern Colorado 59-17. Washington State 2-0. Northern Colorado 0-2. Florida State over UL Monroe 45-44 in overtime. FSU 1-1. UL Monroe 1-1. So that was a survive and move on for Florida State pretty much. Duke over NCA&T 45-13. Duke 1-1. NCA&T 1-1. East Carolina over Gardner-Webb 48-9. Eastern Carolina 1-1. Weber State 0-2. Georgia Southern over Maine 26-18. Georgia Southern 1-1. Maine 1-1. Number 4, Oklahoma over South Dakota, 70-14. Oklahoma 2-0, South Dakota 0-2. 18, UCF over FAU, 48-14. UCF 2-0, FAU 0-2. Georgia State over Furman, 48-42. Georgia State's 2-0. Furman is 1-1. South Alabama over Jackson State, 37-14. USA 1-1. Jackson State 0-2. Wyoming over Texas State, 23-14. Wyoming 2-0. Texas State 0-2. Western Kentucky over FIU, 20-14. Good bounce back win for Western Kentucky. They're 1-1. FIU 0-2. Middle Tennessee over Tennessee State, 45-26. Middle Tennessee 1-1. Tennessee State 1-1. SMU over North Texas, 49-27. This was an upset I got wrong. SMU 2-0. North Texas 1-1. Louisville over Eastern Kentucky, 42-0. Louisville is 1-1. Eastern Kentucky 1-1. BYU over Tennessee, 29-26 in double overtime. BYU is 1-1. Tennessee is 0-2. Coastal Carolina over Kansas, 12-7. Coastal's 1-1. Kansas is 1-1. Oklahoma State over McNeese, 56-14. Oklahoma State is 2-0. McNeese is 1-1. Number 6, LSU over number 9, Texas, 45-38. LSU 2-0. Texas 1-1. This was a fantastic game. And really, the 61-yard pass from Burrow to Justin Jefferson with 2:27 left put the game away. And Ellinger to Devin Duvernay was the late garbage time touchdown in this game. But if Texas was able to get some stops, they could have won this game. But give LSU credit, their offense is for real. And their defense against a good offense like Texas really might struggle a little bit. So, really give Texas a lot of credit for hanging around. I thought Texas would actually win. That was my bold call of the week. But that obviously did not pan out, really. Although Texas had a brief lead there in the second quarter, but LSU pretty much took over, and then it was a shootout pretty much the whole way that LSU just came out on top of. Number 10, Auburn over Tulane, 24-6. Auburn is 2-0. Tulane 1-1. Number 11, Florida over UT Martin, 45-0. Florida 2-0. Tennessee Martin 1-1. Number 15, Penn State over Buffalo, 45-13. Penn State 2-0. Buffalo 1-1. Number 16, Oregon over Nevada, 77-6. That was an impressive win for the Ducks. They're 1-1, so is Nevada. Number 19, Michigan State over Western Michigan, 51-17. Sparty's offense looked better. They're 2-0. Western Michigan 1-1. Eastern Michigan loses at Kentucky, 38-17. Kentucky 2-0. Eastern Michigan 1-1. Ole Miss over Arkansas, 31-17. Ole Miss 1-1. Arkansas 1-1. Utah State over Stony Brook, 62-7. Utah State 1-1. Stony Brook 1-1. Louisiana over Liberty, 35-14. Louisiana 1-1. Liberty 0-2. Houston over Prairie View, 37-17. Houston 1-1. Prairie View 1-1. North Carolina over Miami, 28-25. North Carolina's 2-0 and Miami's 0-2. Nobody saw that coming. Texas Tech over UTEP, 38-3. Texas Tech is 2-0 and UTEP is 1-1. Tulsa over San Jose State, 34-16. Tulsa is 1-1 and San Jose State is 1-1. Arkansas State over UNLV, 43-17. This is one I got right. Arkansas State 1-1. UNLV 1-1. This is one I did not see coming. Cal over 14 Washington, 20-19. That is an impressive win for the Cal Golden Bears. They're 2-0. Washington is 1-1. USC over number 23 Stanford, 45-20. That was an impressive win for the Trojans without JT Daniels. Although Stanford didn't have KJ Castillo either, but Castillo might be back this week for the UCF game. We'll see. USC 2-0. Stanford 1-1. We just talked about the ramifications of Swann resigning a minute ago. But I certainly think that USC is off to a good start this season football-wise in terms of their playing results. Minnesota over Fresno State, 38-35 in double overtime. Minnesota is 2-0. Fresno State is 0-2. Arizona over Northern Arizona, 65-41. Northern Arizona, 1-1. Arizona, 1-1. Hawaii over Oregon State, 31-28. Hawaii, 2-0. Oregon State, 0-2. All right. Guess the lines for week number 3. This is always a fun activity to play. The lines really are wacky sometimes, and sometimes it turns out that I'm right. So without further ado, here we go. First up, Friday night, and all of a sudden a big game in the ACC with both teams being 2-0, and that is the North Carolina Tar Heels at the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. I have the Wake Forest Demon Deacons laying 6 to the surprising North Carolina Tar Heels, and Wake is laying 3. Wow. Everybody is on the Mac train now. So, Mac Brown's team, only a 3-point dog at Wake Forest, who I thought would be a 6.5-point favorite. Kansas at Boston College. I have Boston College laying 16.5. They're laying 21.5, 5 points off. Number 20, Washington State versus Houston. That's from NRG Stadium in Houston, by the way. I had Wazoo -4, Wazoo's -8. Saturday games. Arkansas State at Georgia. Number 3, Georgia. I have Georgia by 37, and Georgia is favored by 33, so I was 4 points off. Number 6, Ohio State at Indiana. Of Ohio State by 17.5. They're favored by 15, so I was 2.5 off there. Pitt at Penn State. I had Penn State by 14. Penn State's favored by 17, so 3 points off there. Number 21, Maryland at Temple. I have Maryland by 7. Maryland's favored by 8, so 1 point off. Miami of Ohio at Cincinnati. I have Cincinnati by 16.5, and that's what the line is. So my first correct pick of the podcast. Chattanooga at Tennessee. I have Tennessee by 33. Tennessee is laying 28, so I was 5 points off. Kansas State at Mississippi State. I have Mississippi State by 13, and the Bulldogs are only laying 8, so 5-point difference. Furman at Virginia Tech. I have Virginia Tech by 38.5. Virginia Tech is laying 21.5, so I was 17 points off. NC State at West Virginia. I have NC State by 4.5. It's by 7. I think that's a massive overreaction to NC State being 2-0 and West Virginia looking so bad against Missouri and not really looking all that great against James Madison. So I think that's a little bit of an overreaction with the 7 line. And I thought that NC State should have been a 4.5-point favorite in this spot, but they're bigger than that. Eastern Michigan at Illinois. I have Illinois by 7, and Illinois is laying 8.5. So I was off by 1.5 points. The Citadel at Georgia Tech. I have Georgia Tech by 15. Georgia Tech's favored by 34. That is a much higher line than I anticipated. Because sometimes they lowball the bad teams. And Georgia Tech is bad. Air Force at Colorado. I have Colorado by 19.5. And Colorado is only laying 3.5. How is that? That's stealing points. If anything, stealing points. Because Air Force stinks. Colorado may not be that bad after all. FAU, I have favored by 8.5 at Ball State. FAU is favored by only 3. I think that's an overreaction from the UCF game. Norfolk State at Coastal Carolina. I have Coastal by 17.5. Coastal's favored by 27, so I was 9.5 off there. New Mexico at number 7, Notre Dame. I have Notre Dame by 26.5. Notre Dame's favored by 34, so I was off on that one. Akron at Central Michigan. I have Central Michigan by 3. Central's favored by 4, so 1 point off. Number 2, Alabama at South Carolina. I have Bama by 28. Bama's favored by 25. So 3 points off. Stanford at number 17, UCF. I made it UCF by 6. UCF's favored by 7.5, so 1.5 points off there. Number 24 to USC at BYU. I have USC by 7. USC's favored by 4.5. which to me was a little bit surprising to see. I thought it would have been higher with their impressive performance over Stanford. East Carolina at Navy. I have Navy by 2.5. Navy's favored by 7.5. That is a much bigger line than I thought. Memphis at South Alabama. I have Memphis by 16. Memphis is favored by 18.5. 2.5 off there. Army at UTSA. I have Army by 18. And Army is favored by 16. So 2 points off there with the Black Knights of Army. Georgia Southern at Minnesota. I have Minnesota by 16.5. And Minnesota is favored by 15.5. So 1 point off. UNLV at Northwestern. Northwestern by 18. Northwestern is favored by 20.5. So that line was bigger than I anticipated. Oklahoma State at Tulsa. I have Oklahoma State by 12.5. Oklahoma State's by 14, so a point off there. Arizona State at number 18. Michigan State at Michigan State by 20. Michigan State's favored by 13.5. That is a low line in my opinion. Number 19, Iowa at Iowa State. I have State favored by 3.5, and Iowa's actually giving 1. I think the wrong team's favored in that game. I think they're overreacting to Iowa dominating the worst team in the Power 5, and they're overreacting to Iowa State almost losing to an FCS school. Southeastern Louisiana and Ole Miss. I have Ole Miss by 37.5, and Ole Miss is laying 33.5, so 4 points off. Colorado State at Arkansas. I have Arkansas by 13. It's Arkansas by 10. Louisville versus Western Kentucky. I have Louisville by 16. Louisville's favored by 9. That's not much at all. Bethune-Cookman at Miami. I have Miami by 40.5. Miami's favored by 41, so a half point off. Idaho State at number 15. Utah. I have Utah by 44. Utah's favored by 36.5. North Texas at Cal. I have Cal by 10.5. Cal's favored by 14. Cal Poly at Oregon State. I have Oregon State by 26.5. Oregon State's favored by 17. Louisiana Tech at Bowling Green. I have Tech by 15. That's actually no. Tech by 10. So I was 5 points off there. Idaho at Wyoming. Wyoming by 27.5. I have Wyoming by 25. 2.5 off there. Buffalo at Liberty. I have Liberty by 3. It's actually Buffalo by 3.5. So 6.5 points the other way. Yikes. SC State at South Florida. I have South Florida by 38. They're favored by 24.5. UMass at Charlotte. I have Charlotte by 7. Charlotte's favored by 19. Yikes. I really wasn't sure if UMass lost to Southern Illinois or not, but they did. And I made that line thinking that Charlotte isn't all that great. So UMass by getting 19. Yikes. Troy hosts Southern Miss. I have Troy by 5.5. Troy's favored by 2.5, so 3 points off. Ohio at Marshall. I have Marshall by 4. It's Marshall by 5.5. Kent State at number 8, Auburn. Auburn by 47.5. Auburn's favored by 35. Florida at Kentucky. I have the number 9 team in the country laying 3 at Kentucky. They're laying 8.5. Yikes. Lamar at 16, Texas A&M. I have A&M favored by 52.5. I have A&M's a favorite by 43.5. So I was off by 9. FIU hosts New Hampshire. I have FIU by 27.5. FIU's favored by 8.5. That's not a small line. Or that's not a big line at all. Next up, Texas State at SMU. I have SMU by 18.5. SMU's favored by 18, so a half point off. Weber State at Nevada. I have Nevada by 8. It's Nevada by 9. I knew that line would be small because I remember that line against San Diego State was so small. And that's another Mountain West team against Weber State. Western Michigan, I have laying 13 in Georgia State, and they're laying 11.5. So Vegas believes in Georgia State more than I do. Murray State and Toledo. I have Toledo by 26.5. Toledo's favored by 36.5, so 10 points off. Duke, Middle Tennessee. I have Duke by 6. It's Duke by 6, so that's my second correct pick. Number 1, Clemson at Syracuse. I have Clemson by 24.5. It's Clemson by 27.5, so 3 points off. Northwestern State at LSU. I have LSU by 56.5, but there's no line for that game yet. LSU is now number 4 in the country. Hawaii at number 23. Washington by 23.5. Washington's favored by 21.5, so 2 points off. Florida State at Virginia. Number 25, Virginia, I should say. Virginia favored I have by 7. They're favored by 7.5, so half point off. TCU at Purdue. TCU by 4.5, and it's TCU by 1. Purdue actually opened as a favorite, but the line moved towards TCU. Now TCU's favored. Southeast Missouri State at Missouri. I have Missouri by 45. Missouri's favored by 33, so 12 points off. Texas Southern at Louisiana. I have Louisiana by 26.5. Louisiana's favored by 47. Wow. Number 5, Oklahoma at UCLA. I have Oklahoma by 31.5, and it's only 22.5, so 9 points off. Number 12, Texas against Rice from Houston. I have Texas by 35.5, and Texas is favored by 30.5, so 5 points off with the Longhorns. San Diego State at New Mexico State. I have San Diego State by 8.5. San Diego State's favored by 16. Missouri State at Tulane. I have Tulane by 30. Tulane's favored by 29. Northern Illinois at Nebraska. I have Nebraska by 25. Nebraska's favored by only 14. Portland State at number 22. Boise State. I have Boise State by 45.5. Boise's favored by 31.5. Texas Tech at Arizona. I have Arizona by 4. It's actually Texas Tech by 2.5. So I think Vegas has the wrong team favored there. And Montana at number 15. Oregon. Oregon by 47 is my pick. And it is Oregon minus 36.5. All right, that's it for Guess the Lines. And last but not least, best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. All right, we're going to go through the games in baseball and in football for tonight, and we'll pick whatever ones stick out to me the best. So, I am going to go with the Denver Broncos on the money line against the Raiders. And guess what, guys? I really am not convinced that the Saints are going to win this game. I love the Saints, and I think that that's your possible Super Bowl winner. But I feel better about the Broncos against the Raiders than the Saints against the Texans. That's solely because the Raiders stink. That's all. So I'm going to go with the Broncos at minus 152. I'm going to take I'm going to hold my breath here because this team always fails me whenever I pick them. The Milwaukee Brewers over the Marlins. And take the Mets at home against the Diamondbacks. I'm holding my breath there too. I'm going to take the Giants at home against the Pirates. So I'm going to avoid the Astros because the A's are good and Mike Fiers has been on fire. And I'm going to take the Indians at the Angels. And that's 5. So 5 picks, 40-cent wager, $3.90 winner. So again, Broncos, Brewers, Mets, Giants, Indians, 46 cents to win $3.90. All right, hope you guys have a great day, everybody.